Hello. Hello. Happy April. The showers bringing the flowers, the whole deal. I'm thrilled to be here. Uh, if you're watching this on YouTube, just to let you know, I'm deep conditioning my hair. It looks a little weird. That's why. So I just want to starve off the paparazzi here and just tell you what's happening. We're doing a deep condition. It's a great thing. I can tell you more about it. DM me. What I really want to talk about is feeling like you have no choices in life. Before I get to this, and Marsha Linehan is going to guest star in my spirit, but she's not on the show. I wish. But before we get to that, I want to say, own your worth, incredible experience, so many new friends, so many new people adding to our amazing community. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thrilled you're here, beyond measure. I am the queen of the more the merrier, and especially when it comes to what you're craving and all things Molly Carmel and Intensati and all the things. So let me just say that we have a dope April coming up. Like, if you're into hanging out with me, there's such a condensed amount of time that we can do it. Let me just run you through it. And then today's podcast actually has a lot to do with the retreat. Anyway, so here, get your pens ready. Get your calendars out. So on the 20th, we have Intensati. You missed it on the 3rd. That's okay. Life happens. And Intensati on the 20th is all about forgiveness. It's all about acceptance. Forgiveness too. They really roll in the same circles, right? I choose to be here. No more insanity. I accept what is, and I set myself free. That's one of the blocks. It's really amazing. So we can do that at 7:00 on the Thursday. Then on the Sunday, that Sunday, the 23rd, we're having our spring renewal retreat online, 5 hours. People on these retreats have like breakthroughs upon breakthroughs upon breakthroughs. So highly reco. Today's podcasts have a lot to do with acceptance and moving away from feeling like you have no choices. Because let me tell you, if you have anything in life, you have choices. I'll get to it in a minute. So we have our retreat on the 23rd. It's going to be amazing. And then I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a big fan of a retreat follow-up, like a huge fan of a retreat. Like, I like to go to the retreat. I like to put my soul out there. I like to bring my soul back in, get reorganized, and then have a group about it. Cause it's like just I love an integration session. That's all I can say. Highly recommend all of that. And that's what we're doing. And at the retreat, we're opening up our slots for the all-in intensive coaching. And if you come to the retreat, you'll get a big, deep discount on that. If you don't, the all-in is amazing. I'll have a bunch of people on in the next few weeks who have done all-in, and wait till you see how far they have come in their relationship with food in 3 months. I have to say it is one of the most beautiful and impressive things. And it's really, it really shows the power of being held and having a lot of support and creating a power circle. And honestly, which I just did a reel about this, and really honestly about self-determination. About self-determination means like you determine what works for you. And any group I do, I'm never here to tell you what to do. I'm your guide. I'm not a narc. I'm just here to help guide you through this process. And so in the all-in intensive coaching program, you create your goals. We're just here to support you on them. And that, I think, it makes a huge difference. Well, I don't just think it makes a huge difference. You know who thinks it makes a huge difference? Science. Self-determination is actually like the only consistent thing we know makes a difference in anybody's change, is that it is determined by themselves. It's why I get so hyped up about coaching culture. I get so hyped up about, when we sell our power to a guru, or we sell our power to a teacher, because that's not going to be lasting change. First of all, it's usually rooted in fear, and it's often rooted in like that codependency, wanting someone to love you, wanting someone to fix you. And those are not changes that last. And I am here for lasting change. I'm here for you growing. I'm here for you changing. I'm here for your magnificence, because I'm really here because I want everybody's light to be shining so bright, because I don't want to get political, but the world needs us. This world is pretty messy, and our light will help to solve that. So we need to heal, 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 heal. And we got to get to it, my friends. So I am here to help guide you, to help you heal, and to get you in this world, being of service with your big, beautiful hearts, your big, beautiful spirits. So let's talk about feeling like a victim. What a great, you know what? I love, I just chat, and then it comes right to the perfect moment. So I want to talk about feeling like a victim. Have you felt like a victim of your circumstances? Raise your hand. I'm raising all my hands. I got to tell you, as they say in the 12 steps, you spot it, you got it. I feel like I talk about this victim thing all of the time because I lived it for so long and I had no idea how to heal it. So I want to tell you, first of all, one of my favorite teachers, Carolyn Miss, she's just the greatest thing. She always says, when we're feeling like a victim, we forget that we have choices. And, that'll happen to me from time to time. I will just feel like, oh my God, I cannot believe this is happening. I can't believe this is happening to me. That is like red flags for me. And I'll think, and I'll sit down and I'll say to myself, all right, what is happening in this moment that is making you forget that you have choices, Molly? And usually it's some historical thing has taken over my body and I've gone into a different part of me, a younger part of me, right? Or I just sort of lost my way, lost my mind, and I can bring myself back by remembering that I have choices. And so my beloved Marsha Linehan, I forgot about this. I've been trained in dialectical behavior therapy for so long. I'm such an old lady DBT therapist here. And it sort of came to me the other day because it's just this kind of handout that's very forgotten in DBT. And I want to talk about it today. And Marsha Linehan, who is the treatment developer of dialectical behavioral therapy, she is the original gangster of healing. I mean, she's really something great. She has a biography. You could really do a rabbit hole on Marsha Linehan. Like that's a rabbit hole worth jumping into. But we digress. So she has this worksheet or this skill. You can Google it. And it is called Options for Solving Any Problem. Isn't that a beaut? It's like a little love letter to us. And, because I think the other part of when we feel a victim, right? We think we're out of choices. We think we're stuck. We think we're trapped in a corner. And Marsha Linehan is here and I'm here as her proxy to remind you, or she says that there are 4 ways that we can solve problems, because the truth is, my friends, and not to be the Debbie Downer of your Wednesday, but if you're living a big, beautiful life, it is probable that kind of crappy things are going to happen. Unfortunate, painful things are going to happen. And it's kind of like an infinite number of things can happen in any single moment, but there's not an infinite ways that we can respond to the pain. And in fact, when painful things happen, for many of us, our first reaction is to fall victim. Oh, I can't, and just kind of like lay dead on the floor and say, well, I guess this is just how it's going to be, or make things worse, which we'll get to in a minute, right? So there are 4, Marsha Linehan says there are 4 things that we can do when we are presented with a problem. I'll go through each one of them with you. So we can solve the problem. We can change our feelings about the problem. We can tolerate the problem. We can stay miserable. She's not even kidding. It's just true. If you're presented with a problem, you can decide to stay miserable. If you're presented with a tough situation that is unchangeable, you can say, you know what? I'm just going to bathe in my misery all day. That's an option. So it's not even an irreverent thing. It's just true. And I think there's a fifth. So does Alec Miller and Jill Rathis. They invented this. It's not my idea, but you can also make the problem worse. So when you're presented with a problem, there's 5 things that you can do. So the first thing you can do when you're presented with a problem is like solve the problem, right? This really gnarly thing comes your way, or this really gnarly thing comes to your attention. I think with addiction, eating disorders, unhealthy relationships with anything, a lot of times it's been happening. And then like one day we wake up to it happening. That's happened to me in lots of different, that happened to me with Diet Coke. I woke up one day and I was like, oh, I think this thing is killing me. And then I had to decide how I was going to deal with that problem. And I'm one of those people who loved Diet Coke. I actually still crave a Diet Coke to this day, but I haven't had one for 15 years. Isn't that crazy? 15 years, no Diet Coke. I gave up Diet Coke before I even gave up sugar. But when you're presented with a really gnarly problem, one option is to try to solve the problem, right? You can try to find a way to end your suffering and your pain, or change the problem situation, or avoid the situation, or like get out of it for good, right? And if you're struggling in your relationship with sugar, you can say, this pain is so great, I am going to decide to not eat sugar anymore, right? I'm going to avoid it. It's over. You can do that in a relationship with a human, right? You can be in a really unhealthy, toxic marriage or relationship, and you can say, I'm going to solve this problem by getting divorced. This is it, right? Or I'm just going to avoid spending time with this person. So you can make a decision. And like a lot of you, I'm sure you're like my little puppy Danny, like the hair on the back of your neck is saying, Molly, it is not that easy. Nobody's saying the solutions to these problems are easy, but they're solutions. And I think that that's the piece, is that when we're presented with a really hard problem, and by the way, I can do a whole podcast on this, but the learned helplessness comes up, right? This idea that like our shame response comes up and we get so paralyzed and we've quote unquote failed at so many things that we're like, oh yeah, you know what? This relationship is terrible, but there's nothing I can do about it. But the truth is there is stuff you can do about it. There are consequences to doing things about it. You might be rejected. It might not work, but we always have choices. So our first choice is that we can solve the problem. So unhealthy relationship with sugar, we can break up with sugar, right? We can avoid it at all costs. Unhealthy relationship with a friend, we can break up with that friend. We can avoid that friend, right? We can go to therapy with that friend. We can go to coaching to break up with sugar. I mean, there's all sorts of ways that we can really try to solve a problem, right? And the thing I want to remind you about solving a problem is that solving the problem isn't just like always like the end game that we think it is. Sometimes there's like a middle path, especially with humans, right? There's sometimes like, oh, you know what? I can live harmoniously with this person and not spend that much time with them, or something like that, right? The second thing, which I think to me is actually, I think it's the most underrated way to solve a problem, or the most underrated way to solve a problem, is to feel better about the problem, is to, so this is a big one, because you know me, right? I always think like the definition of spirituality is a shift in what you choose to believe. And so I think when really unfortunate things come our way, something that really works that we don't think about, and we don't think about the power of, and again, a lot of times this is because we've been bombarded with failure experiences, right? We've been bombarded with shame response. We've been bombarded with rejections. And so it doesn't occur to us, right? The first thing, if you've been in constant failure cycle, constant shame response, constant fear of rejection, constant paralysis, your first response is going to be to like play dead and to think like, okay, this is the worst thing. I can't believe this is happening to me. I can't move. I'm trying to give us some other options because I like you moving and grooving. And I think this is a great option. to change the way you think about the problem, to work to feel better about the problem, right? And the clinical term for this is changing our emotional response to it, right? So we can work at regulating our feelings around it, or we can work on changing our perspective on it. So I was working with somebody and, and believe me, do I relate to this? But, she's like, I can't believe it. You know, I don't drink. I can't drink. And now I can't eat sugar. And now I can't eat fat. They took away the alcohol. They took away the sugar. They took away the flour, you know? And I so gently really worked this particular skill with her. And I said, here's the problem. If that's going to be your perspective on not using these substances, I think one of two things is going to happen. Either you're not going to live a happy life, right? You're going to live a peaceful life because you're going to feel so burdened by this. And it does make, doing these substances again, although, the world's not going to implode if, you've decided you don't want to drink anymore and you pick up a drink. It's like, the world doesn't implode. Sugar, flour, same thing. But again, it's just not consistent with your values. And I think the problem with it is that the main reason you're going to go back to these unhealthy behaviors is simply because of your perspective on these behaviors, right? And so what I said to her is like, I think you're either going to live a miserable life or you'll be back in these addictions. And I don't think either one of those are great options. I want to offer you this third option of changing your perspective on what we're doing here, right? And remember, a belief is a repeated thought. A belief is a repeated thought. And so changing your perspective is very possible. It just takes patience, a little bit of patience and a lot of repetition. I know patience is not our virtue here at What You're Craving, but maybe we could work on, patience of being patient. But I do think that this is an interesting way to solve a problem, don't you? Which is changing your perspective of the problem, regulating, in a way with this client of mine. It's like we had to work on like my spiritual advisor always says, like, we have to work on taking the heat out of the problem, because if a problem brings you heat, there's no wise mind in it, right? And so learning how to feel better about the problem, learning how to take the heat out of the problem is a great solution to a problem, changing your perspective on a problem. You know that Wayne Dyer quote that I'm obsessed with? When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, right? And so again, maybe even like my terminology, breaking up with sugar, it's too heated for you. You're like, I don't want to do, And so in that way, one of the greatest skills we use when we are feeling better when we try to learn how to feel better about a problem is we learn how to regulate our emotions about it. And we learn about mindfulness. Like maybe for you, it's like, yeah, I need to break up with alcohol, but it feels like a punishment. It's like, well, then maybe we need to take it slower. Maybe in this moment right now, you're feeling like your desire to feel free is greater than your desire to drink or eat sugar, or you fill in the blank. And that's for this moment. And then we're going to deal with the next moment. So mindfulness of where you are and where your feet are is also a great way of changing this perspective, as is learning how to regulate your emotions around it and learning how to you got to bring choice into it, right? Because if the whole world is happening to you, then it does feel like a noose around your neck. And with addiction, if you don't mind me saying, addiction wants to get that noose around your neck. If you're ambivalent about breaking up with sugar or breaking up with alcohol or something, that addiction mind wants a noose around your neck, because once you're strangled, you're going to pull the noose off your neck and be back in that substance. And addiction is a sneaky little foe like that. So, reminding yourself that this is like a normal part of breaking up with something, right? And it's not really something to be distressed about or Finding joy outside of the joy that sugar brings you or that alcohol brings you. And like if you're talking about human relationships, thinking like, well, sometimes disagreements happen in relationships. And, it doesn't mean that just because I don't like this person right now doesn't mean I don't love this person. And again, like distracting yourself with other things that bring you emotional joy. Okay. I just wanna say also, I was like, "Oh, this will be like a 15-minute podcast." I'm probably clocking it at like 25 minutes. I mean, thank you for listening to me. You're such a wonderful group of humans. So this third one is tolerating the problem. I actually think this really has to do so much with what we're doing at our retreat on the 23rd, because we're really gonna be keying in to acceptance, to radical and deep acceptance. Because the truth is, friends, there are a lot of problems that come our way that aren't solvable in the moment that they come, right? And those things cause us, I think, the most distress. And sometimes we can't feel better about the problem. It's too big, it's too painful. And sometimes we can't, get there, and we can still alleviate some of the distress. Acceptance is an amazing gift. It really is. And learning how to accept problems we can't solve is actually a skill in and of itself. And I want to say something that's like really true, which is a lot of times, try this on if you're really, really, really refusing to accept something. And my note about feeling better about the problem made you want to punch me through your screen. A lot of times when we're not accepting reality, it's because we're avoiding deep, deep grief. And remember, that deep grief feels threatening to your brain. It doesn't know that it's going to be like the most freeing thing you're ever going to do with your life because you're going to release a feeling. So your brain's like, oh no, shut that down. I refuse to accept this is happening. No, this is not happening. I'm going to go micromanage. I'm going to go get in the way. I'm going to get bitter. I'm going to go get real heated about this particular situation. Right. And so learning how to tolerate, learning how to just accept the problem as it is actually a solution. Isn't that so interesting? And so when we're thinking about like, maybe you really think that in this moment, like you really, really want to heal your relationship with food. It's so painful and you just can't take the steps. That tolerating that sadness, I know it sounds crazy, but that actually might be that first step towards solution. When we're thinking about relationships with people, I actually think this is such an interesting one because you may be in a relationship, struggling in a relationship with humans, right? Where you can't leave, you can't just cut the person off and you can't improve the relationship. So, and you also can't like feel better about it. You can't spending time with your other friends doesn't make you feel better about it. Right. But if you can practice radical acceptance, if you can say, this is how it is right now, and I'm going to stop fighting this reality, I'm going to lean into this reality being true. There's actually, don't knock it till you tried it. There's actually a ton of freedom in acceptance. It's like that Intensati series I was just telling you, right? I accept what is and I set myself free. I choose to be here, no more insanity. I accept what is and I set myself free. It's pretty crazy. And we'll talk about this a lot in the retreat. But when you accept what is, you actually open yourself up to a lot of different options. You have to see it. You got to try it to see it. And the other thing is a lot of times, like when you're in deep pain, a lot of the pain is in the non-acceptance. A lot of the pain is in this can't be happening. I cannot believe it. Can you believe she said that? All of that is really what's causing you the distress. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are some really painful situations, but the painful situation gets an added layer of pain and suffering with the non-acceptance. And so learning how to tolerate the pain of the situation without the non-acceptance is actually a solution to the problem. Interesting, right? I love that. So anyway, we're going to talk a lot about that skill and how to do it, whatever, at the retreat, if you're around. And I talk a lot about feeling better about the program all of the time, the problem, I mean. And then this last idea is to stay miserable. And I know it sounds like kind of like, I don't know, like door in the face, but it's true. When you're deciding to play the victim, you're making a decision to stay miserable. And I want to say that. I mean, you can at me, you can write me long texts at my DM about this if you have questions, but it's actually true. Staying miserable is a choice because you can radically accept it. You can work to feel better and reframe it, or you can solve it. But staying miserable is a choice, right? You could, right? I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow, but it really is very, very true. You can be completely unskillful and lay there like a dead fish, or you can just try to get yourself back in the water in some way, or even just close to the water in some way. And then, for all of my people who understand the struggle, at least with food and with I don't know, probably with everything else, that fifth one is that you can go make it worse, right? How many times back in the day did I put on that bathing suit or those like quote unquote skinny jeans and they didn't fit or it didn't look the way I wanted? And my reaction was to go and binge. Like you're telling, like, right? That is making a bad situation even worse and self-harming on top of it and reinforcing what a terrible, all the things. So can we, go plant this in your spiritual garden and see what kind of flowers bloom. But what I want to remind you is like, you are not a victim and you don't have to just lay there when a problem comes. Also, you don't have to go and like hypervigilantly go fix it and solve. There's lots of different ways. There's so much more in your control than you think. And you never have to feel a victim of your circumstances. You never, ever need to feel a victim of your circumstances. I'm telling you, I know that we're like a quarter through 2023, but like, I got to tell you, I'm shifting gears and all I want you to do is take your power back. You got to call it back big, my friends. Call back your power, because if your first reaction to when a problem comes your way is to fall dead and turn victim, we have so much of your power that is just like roaming out there like a random atom in the air. And I want to get it back for you, because can you imagine what you're capable of? I'm so excited. So anyway, are you with me? This is going to be the 3/4 of the year of taking back your power. Like enough is enough. And this is going to be the first way. When a problem comes your way, let's work on solving it in a different way. I'm here for it. I am here for it. Anyway, that's enough out of me. I want to hear from you. I love a DM. I love a follow on Instagram. I love you coming to our Facebook group. I'd love to see you at Sati, and I would really, really love to see you at this retreat. It's going to be incredible. Everything's on mollycarmel.com. It's pretty dope. And I love you. And I believe in you with all of my heart and all of my soul. I will talk to you next week.